Presentation today is about tech fascism and like the tech oligarchy. So the title I went with is Everything is Computer. Unfortunately, one of those Trumpisms that lives in all of our head now, is everything is computer. But this is the other one that I also weighed is it's just like that we are living in a cyberpunk dystopia. Yeah, this is like what the reality we're in today. Um, I handed out at the front desk, there's a list of resources. As I said, we're not going to be able to cover every single aspect of this. So if you want to learn more about any of these topics, definitely check out that list of resources. There's some books in there that you can read. And I also want to highlight a lot of people expressed interest in joining a research team with Clean Air related to data centers. And so we're going to start to kick off a bi-monthly meeting for folks who want to work on research projects related to data centers. So that'll be the first one of those will be August 13th at 4 o'clock, and it'll be every other month on the second Thursday of the month at that time. I'll put my email in the chat after we get through all this, and you can reach out to me if you're interested in joining that team. That resource list is also on our link tree, so you can find it there as well. And again, if there's anything we covered today that you're interested in really diving more in depth into, please reach out to me, bridge@cacwny.org, or my colleague Milo at cacwny.org. We can help meet for one-on-ones and talk a little bit more about some of these topics with you. So as with everything, we start off talking about how we ground this information within the context of our campaign. So what we're going to be talking about today are the people involved. So these are the decision makers within that Midwest Academy framework. These are the people who can make decisions on the campaign goals that we have that we want to be able to move. And sometimes it's not necessarily going to be these people we mentioned, but people who have influence or can have some power over that particular person. So, for example, Governor Hochul saying, "I'm not going to allow New York State authorities or agencies to issue permits anymore." That is she is the decision maker in that process that that has set that line to tell Elon Musk that no, you can't just build a data center here without any permits. It's we are drawing that line in the sand and saying we don't want you doing that. So when you talk about power, we talk about those decision makers, this is part of a power mapping. You might have heard that phrase. So this is figuring out, again, who is that decision maker, and then figuring out who are the people that can influence that person. So in this instance, Governor Hochul, she's definitely somebody of high power and high influence, but she was kind of in the middle of this chart here that we have of what is power mapping. And we've managed to get her more on the supportive side of regulating data centers, right? So when we think about power mapping, we want to be thinking about who has high power, and we can get them to support our stance on that. There's going to be some people like Elon Musk who have a lot of power, but they're very opposed to us. We're not looking to move them. We're looking to move those who we can get in that upper right quadrant, right? Yeah, right quadrant. There's also going to be people who live next to a data center who are going to be very opposed to it, but them on their own, that they're not necessarily going to have the power to influence that. But when we get them connected to other people, then we can move them into that. They have a lot of power at that point. So if you want to learn more about power mapping, I really encourage checking out our friends at Little Sis, Public Accountability Initiative right here in Buffalo. They have a bunch of 101s on power mapping available on their website, littlesis.org/trainings. And I also want to mention 3 websites. There's theplotagainstamerica.com, poweredbywho.com, and influence.citationneeded.news. These 3 websites were published very in the last year or so, and are very specifically honing in on data centers and the people who are influencing the build out. So I would encourage, if you really want to learn quite a bit more about power mapping and these people, these are really great resources that are now available to us. And one other plug here before we get to a short video is Little Sis is going to be doing a training on using their oligrapher tool. So, you've seen me like with the strings, on the red strings on things, like drawing between lines. You can do that digitally now and like make it actually make sense. So there's the oligrapher tool is a really useful way of like figuring out who these connections between these different power players like involved. So again, visit littlesis.org/trainings. You'll find the information for that training right there. Okay, so that all sucks, right? That's like an intense video. Unfortunately, it kind of gets worse from there. This is Curtis Yarvin. Show of hands, have folks heard of this man? Yeah, we got a few folks in the room, like in a couple middle fingers in this room. Mencius Bulldog is his handle. He's been around like internet spaces like since the 1990s. Like he was one of those guys that got online early, early 90s when like the internet was like still in its infancy. So he got a lot of early connections like through that. These are real things that he believes is technocratic feudal monarchies and literally bringing back chattel slavery. This is like his vision of the world. It sounds insane, and it is, and it sounds bigoted, and it is. This is a very weird man with very dangerous, violent beliefs. And unfortunately, a lot of people have been listening to him, and a lot of people in power are his disciples. One of the things I really want to flag is in 2011, there was a neo-Nazi terrorist shooting at a summer camp in Norway. And that white supremacist went on, he published a manifesto when he did that. And that manifesto has been used for white supremacists and white nationalist terrorist attacks globally, including the Buffalo shooting right here. The Buffalo shooting, like that terrorist, that monster, was basing his manifesto off of the 2011 one. And Curtis Yarvin, his reaction to this, like this shooting back in 2011, was that the shooter was not effective because he didn't kill enough people. And so like this is the person who's like influencing like a lot of like people in power. Is this like really horrific like philosopher. So he has directly influenced, again, there's mentioned like Peter Thiel, but he's also friends with like Elon Musk, Alex Karp, who's like Peter Thiel's number 2, Sam Altman with OpenAI, Steve Bannon, and Mark Andreessen, the weird guy with the egghead right there. These people are all like have between them all trillions of dollars and have these political connections and are all connected. And most distressingly, perhaps, is that he is friends with J.D. Vance. There was mentioned in the video that Peter Thiel was friends with J.D. Vance, and so like there's that connection. But J.D. Vance and Curtis Yarvin know each other and are friends. So very, very distressing to see like these people with power, with this set of beliefs. Very, very weird men, just like monsters we all have to be fighting. So one other thing that's not mentioned in the video is this whole idea of artificial general intelligence. This is part of the belief set that these trillionaires all have, is that we're going to create this AI god that is going to start programming itself, and it's going to create the ideal environment that they want. And all these big tech firms, whether it's Google or XAI or Meta, they're all building these data centers out in this pursuit of creating this AGI, artificial intelligence god. That's, it's basically systemic AI psychosis, within Tech Valley that is kind of become everybody's problem now. Related to this is this concept of effective altruism. So this is the idea that you as an individual are obligated to maximize the amount of wealth that you have, so then you can spend it for the maximum public benefit. You might have heard Sam Bankman-Fried talk about effective altruism quite a bit. So this is part of his thinking, and that's why he was ostensibly investing all that everybody's money into crypto, was he was trying to maximize his own wealth. And the belief set that they have is that, the maximum public benefit is AGI, is creating this artificial intelligence god. Oddly enough, they don't seem to believe that taxing, and like using taxes for public benefit, like maximizing their money that they're bringing in, and then like spreading the wealth. That's not part of the mindset. It's this pursuit of this artificial intelligence god. Here's the thing though, is more and more AI researchers are coming around to the point that it's just not possible with the current AI models. Maybe 20 years from now, as AI develops, we might see AGI emerge. But right now, it's just not in the immediate future. But Tech Valley cannot admit to this. Sam Altman, and like people like what's his name here, Larry Ellison. They have literally pledged or invested trillions of dollars at this point into this data center. So when you hear people talk about the data center bubble, this is part of it. Is that at some point here, there's going to have to be acknowledgement that this technology is just not going to meet the goals that they're trying to build, and all of that money that they're investing into these data centers is going to go poof. So they cannot admit to this because there is so much on the table that they have pledged or they've spent. There's also some people who are just weird in other ways. So Stephen Miller, I don't think he, everything I've read about him, I don't think he's one of these tech sector, people with this AI psychosis going on. But he is a white nationalist. He believes in a white ethno state. He believes in mass deportation and expanding the carceral state. And he's treating AI and this build out as part of those goals. So he's using things like Block, to help him in his pursuit of these goals, and getting using that using these technologies to help in those goals. There's also, this we've all seen all these federal employees being fired, all these the administrative state kind of being dissolved. That goes back to Curtis Yarvin. So he promoted back in the 90s this idea of RAGE, retire all government employees. That became folded into the Schedule F experiment at the end of the first Trump administration, which was using Schedule F, which is this obscure part of the national administrative code, to basically reclassify a ton of federal employees and then fire them. So then that tactic was folded into Project 2025, it became a goal there. And that then became part of Doge, which Doge came in and fired, thousands of government employees and really worked to eliminate the administrative state and a lot of regulations. So that all goes back again to Curtis Yarvin, and this idea of retire all government employees. Something else to flag with Doge is during that first year of the second Trump administration, Doge stole a lot of our information, a lot of our data, especially Social Security records. And we don't yet know where all that data landed. So, this is part of the mess with, with Doge, is we have to be aware that, at some point here, we're going to find out what the goal is with that data that they stole from all of us. So that's something else I just want to flag for folks. There's also people who are just strictly cashing out. So, Jeff Bezos, Larry Ellison, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jensen Huang, they buy into this AI stuff, this AI god somewhat. But mostly they're just making a lot of money right now through a lot of circular loans between themselves, a lot of stock speculation, straight up Ponzi schemes, and some tax dodges. So this is a graphic of the circular economy of AI right now. Is basically the way you and I keep passing around the same $20 when one of us is short, needs help with a vet bill or something, we're all passing around the same $20. They're all passing around the same several $billion, hundreds of billions of dollars. They're not making any money. In fact, they're losing money. As the longer this goes on. But again, they can't admit to the fact that they don't have an out here. So they just keep passing this money around between the chips manufacturers, between the software companies, and between the AI companies, around and around and around in circles. And this is a graphic of some of the the tax schemes that are going on. So this is about Meta, this is about Alphabet or Google, this is about Amazon, and the way that they have, basically, been able to avoid getting taxed on that money because it's all in the form of these business loans to each other. So like they're just like passing around this money and it's not getting taxed at all, like within that framework. So it's just a lot of like again like just circular like economy that's not being built. A lot of economy that's just kind of like going around in circles. Yeah, I'm moving as fast as I can. Um, Yeah, and then there's like all the weird gambling and crypto stuff. So, Donald Trump made like $1 billion last year. And something else I want to emphasize here is Southern Poverty Law Center determined that like around 2014, there was a big influence of money into like white nationalist organizing. And a lot of that comes back to like early buyers of Bitcoin, who bought into this. And the parallel I want to draw for folks is like the 1980s, there was this fella, like the black and white photo there, Robert J. Matthews. This was a white nationalist who robbed millions of dollars from banks and then used that to fund a lot of the militias, in the 80s and 90s. So something to just keep in mind here is like this money doesn't stay with like these like, these early like investors. They spread it among like others, who have their ideological goals in mind. And yeah, like so we'll keep moving along. Another point here is like in 2020, like with the like all the the social change that was happening in 2020, there was a big push to unionize within the tech sector, and that freaked out a lot of these tech billionaires. So they started swinging from like this centrist sort of position they had set themselves with, decidedly rightward, following like the unionization by their employees. At the same time, also, Lena Khan was the chair of the FTC under the Biden administration, and she set out to break up a lot of monopolies, which is like how a lot of these companies are set up. So between these two dynamics, the tech sector leadership freaked out and started like heavily like leaning into like some far right ideology. This all goes back to ultimately like fossil fuels and a lot of things we fight against. Oil, gas, and coal are phasing down. But so they're looking for lifelines. So we tried to throw them a lifeline with like plastics and liquefied natural gas, but that's expensive. So a lot of them pivoted back to power generation under the second Trump administration. So like just leaning back into like these existing frameworks that have caused all these harms. And fossil fuel companies benefit from lax health regulation, lax safety regulation, and lax environmental regulation. So they ultimately ended up aligning again with the far right as a result. It's like they make money off of like these regulatory like rollbacks. So ultimately, as much as we are fighting like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and all that, we're still fighting the ghosts of the Koch brothers, at the core of a lot of this. We're still fighting the ghosts of the John Birch Society with like a lot of like the fights we have today. It's all like one big fight for environmental justice and the just transition. So how does this influence local like site fights? So we have Elon with Buffalo Tesla building this, like trying to build this Dojo supercomputer, and the parallels to the Colossus supercomputer that they have down in Memphis, Tennessee. And also just like all of his union busting and his civil rights violations that have happened at that Tesla plant. We have our friend John Williams with Ready Prente. He was the biggest regional donor to the Trump administration in 2020. I would say like since then he hasn't like made donations to Trump, but he did start leaning into donating to Ron DeSantis. So he's like he's still doing these big data center build outs. He's still like supporting a lot of these ideological goals that we're up against. And there's also this one is a very weird one, is the Nine Lines Digital Group up in Niagara Falls. That if you want like just laugh and just hold your head, you can read up about on this guy Michael Bagley. He's a former DC intelligence guy, like affiliated with like Blackwater and all that. And he went to jail or prison for several years for helping the Mexican cartels like do money laundering. And he's friends with his friend George Hajati, who is also did federal time for fraud as well. And they have bought several sites from the former Globe Metallurgical facilities up in Niagara Falls for data center developments. They're proposing a 500 megawatt like data center campus. So keep tabs on this project, because like the intelligence side of this is a little distressing, so we don't know, we need to figure out like what is this guy's goal with this data center. So quick lessons from the past. Have folks heard of Mayor Schwab? So this was the Buffalo mayor in the late 20s, early 30s. And he's a fun character. You should read up on him, go to the Buffalo History Museum, read about him. But he got a hold of a list of the KKK in the Buffalo region. And he published, he made several lists, he made several copies of it, and he brought it to City Hall and just had it in like the City Hall downtown. And, like people were finding out, it's like, this is my neighbor, this is my priest, this is my, my boss. And there were very real consequences for these KKK members once, Mayor Schwab did this mass unmasking of these KKK members. So, it's like he, did this bold action to like, basically just go after the Klan, like regionally. So we need to be thinking about this, is that like, in some ways we're on better footing, like there's more people who are opposed to fascism and white nationalists today than there were in the 1920s. You might have seen like Patriot Front like marching in DC a couple weeks ago, like about 400 people. Compare that to the KKK march in the 1920s, which had like 10,000. So, it's like we have more strength today than we did back then. But we beat them back then, and we can beat them back now. But we need to take those lessons from the past to make sure that we are able to research like our opposition, make sure that we're not just like retreading like the same ground, but moving things forward, and making sure that there's consequences attached to these people's actions. So the pendulum is going to swing back at some point here, and maybe this November will be that moment where like things start to swing back towards justice and equity. So we need to be prepared to act when that happens. We can't allow compromise positions like we did under the Biden administration, which kind of created, created the ground for Trump to come back. We need to make sure that we are fully committing and leaning into, like a just transition. Yeah, and just like to wrap this up, like I want to give like a couple examples here of like one of the key weapons of going after fascism and white nationalism is just calling out the absurdity of the awfulness of their rhetoric. So these were two lesbians in World War II on the island of Jersey, and when the Nazis invaded and took it over, they led a grassroots campaign to basically kind of like create a disinformation campaign, for the Nazis at that time. And they created like quite a bit of like trouble for the Nazis. Through like satire and laughter and, like whisper campaigns of just like how weird these guys are, and like, just like, what is their deal? Like what's with the haircuts, so, like these are two people you should read up on, like fascinating characters. And this also brings up like a key moment from the 2024 election was and we're not going to have time to watch a video, but like Tim Walz had this line about these guys are weird, and it was actually like really important and really powerful for him to be saying that. And I personally think it was a strategic mistake to like lean against that, because like I think what happened was like some of the DC insiders were like, well, that's my friend, you're calling him weird, and it's like, no, these people are weird. And like the more we can call that out and the more we can point out just like the absurdity of like these belief sets that they have, the less power they have. So I just want to emphasize, like, like lean into satire, lean into humor, and lean into like these actions. Okay, that was a lot. We only have about 10, 15 minutes left scheduled, but we're going to do some breakouts now. And I think this is Val and Chris are going to lead this section.
Hello, everyone. We're going to do a quick breakout session here. And so we're going to ask you to sit with someone, be to your left, to your right, or forward or back, but sit with someone that you're not all that familiar with. So not your friend, not somebody you know well. And just bunch up 2, 3 people. Yes, look at you all. You all know who you're going to be working with. So we're going to do about a 10-minute presentation here. And so we we clearly see.
5 minutes, 5
We,
minutes.
we clearly see what the power of a vision can do. We've seen this vision. We've seen this nerd Reich, oligarchy vision. So now we want to talk about where our vision is, where we go with this. What does our future look like? So there are two questions we're going to ask you to consider here. What kind of world, and think about this for a bit, what kind of world do you want to build? Additionally, what do you fight for? So we're going to ask you to talk for 5 minutes about these questions, and then we'll just have some folks report out really quickly. So break out into your groups now. Thank you. We could talk about this for a long time, right? And it's a good thing. It's a good thing that you're having a vision. Remember one thing, I mean, it's a good thing to have a vision, right? And that you're talking about it and that you want to talk about it more. And I do encourage you to talk about it further. Change does not happen without a vision. So we're going to get some feedback now. We're going to ask a couple of folks from the in-person group here to share a little bit from their discussion, and then we'll have one from our online group. So who would like to start?
If you just raise your hand, I'll bring the microphone.
My name's Eve, and the first thing that came to mind is what kind of world we want to build. I'm a member of Unity Church up here on Delaware, and one of our mission is a world of love, peace, and abundance for all. And so that was the first thing that came to my mind. The second thing that came to my mind is when Kirk Skirdo was here with Paul Winnie and the Western New York Rights of Nature group was presenting the idea of a green economy or a green democracy versus a gray economy or democracy. So that was the other thing that came to mind. And I tried to recall it on my phone, but it's no longer available. So I can't even remember the name of the book right now, but it is going to be released soon. So I would say keep your eye out for that. So what was interesting here is relating and comparing what Kurt presented right here in this very room to a bunch of people that I know a few of you were here for that, to what we just watched in that video. It's like the complete opposite. That was very interesting.
And just another volunteer, please, to speak for what you discussed. I'll pick on you. I'm going to pick on you.
Kind of assume. So I guess a summation of what my group kind of discussed, to put it brief, I could rant about this all day. Oh, excuse me. I could rant about this all day, but to make it succinct and kind of short, generally just fighting for a better world where all of us can get a better sense of equity, environmental protections, and a recognition of people's ability to exist, as well as wealth equality. So I know it's kind of a generalization there, but I think those are very important and definitely avid topics right now.
Looks like one person on Zoom. I'm gonna come over here and help with that. Yeah, so if someone from Zoom wants to come off mute and share something you can that you discussed.
Yeah, Hannah and I were discussing how it's not just people, but animals, species, how we're all connected, and these terrible, greedy people are actively trying to socially murder most of us, and how we need to take that very seriously and act with urgency.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Ariane. Yeah, and thank you everybody for coming tonight. We're gonna have Jazz close us out with a musical number, and yeah, appreciate everybody, appreciate everyone's time and joining us here tonight.